Well, Merry Christmas Eve, everyone. I'm Rachelle Legrand, filling in for Deanna Giles this evening. And if you've been checking your list and checking it twice, perhaps you were one of the many shoppers who flooded the Okemos Meijer this Sunday morning, gathering last-minute staples to finish your Christmas meals. News 10's Mars Anderson spoke with a few shoppers making pickups and asked about their holiday plans. And I'm Rachelle Legrand. In this hour, we're going to show you the change makers and those pushing for inclusion, diversity, and unity right here in mid-Michigan. But in order to truly celebrate this holiday, we have to understand the history behind it. Juneteenth represents Black freedom and the official end of slavery here in the United States.
Game at Ford Field, so pretty exciting.
Very exciting. Thank you, Joey. And I have to say, you know, red and green is certainly the color this season, but I think tonight we can make an exception for the Honolulu blue. Right?
Everybody's wearing it tonight.
That's
good
right.
Color.
All right, well, stay with us after the break. We'll show you how mid-Michigan is lighting up the holiday cheer less than 1 hour away from Christmas Day. A developing story out of Jackson County. 2 people are dead after they crashed head-on overnight. The accident happened on M60 Spring Arbor Road, just east of Reynolds Road. Justin, at 6 p.m., Santa was in London, and now he's all the way in Michigan. So I have to say, I think Rudolph and the gang, they put the pedal to the metal.
They did, yeah, he moves. I mean, I don't know how he does it, but he gets it done. And so that's what he's doing tonight. And through all this fog around mid-Michigan, he's got to be extra careful.
That was Tanisha DeBose describing the type of health care she felt she received while she was pregnant with her daughter. According to the CDC, Black women are 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. And Black babies are more likely to be born prematurely and with health issues. This year also marks 70 years since Brown v. Board of Ed, the Supreme Court ruling that ended segregation in schools. The landmark decision ruled that separate but equal was inherently not equal. And right here in Lansing, a battle for equality amongst students and administration was also being fought. This hour, we're honoring Dr. Olivia Letts and her fight for change that made her the first Black teacher and Black principal in the Lansing School District.
This letter is dated March 9th, 1951, and it's directed to Miss Davis, which was my mother's maiden name. We were very glad to receive your application for a position in Lansing. However, I think I should explain to you that the Lansing schools do not generally employ people of your race for teaching positions.
73 years later, Eileen Letts reflects on a rejection letter mailed to her mother.
And we are in the process now of trying to find an upstanding person to be first one employed.
That upstanding person eventually was her mother.
So my father then advocated with some other people to be a teacher here, and she became the first Black teacher in the Lansing School District in 1951.
From school teacher to principal to director of elementary education, Dr. Letts worked her way up in the Lansing School District. She opened doors for Black educators and worked to put an end to school segregation. But it didn't come without struggle.
You don't start a job as the only Black person and not have a lot of obstacles that you have to overcome.
Lansing education advocate Barbara Roberts Mason discusses the challenges educators faced in the 1960s.
I had been in so many schools in Lansing that I knew the differences in the schools, and I could tell how the disparate treatment of kids in the schools in the Black neighborhoods, they were different. They were not as clean. The curriculum in many instances wasn't as good. They didn't have as much in terms of equipment.
But that didn't stop Olivia, the staff, and the students' hope for change.
She cared about them to the point that she cared about their parents, because she knew that some of them were coming to school without breakfast, without lunch. She cared about them because she knew that some of their parents couldn't read. So how do we bring parents in and help parents to be able to help their children more? That's the kind of a person Olivia was. You don't just deal with one little thing. It's a whole composite of issues.
Barbara tells me Olivia tackled those issues each with strength that inspired those around her.
Olivia becoming the first principal was the best thing that could have happened to Lansing, because the kids whom she taught were strengthened by her. The teachers with whom she worked were strengthened by her, and that led to the next generation,
including Daniel Bogan III.
It was always my goal to go to college as of 8th grade, and having people like Mr. Letts and his wife to be around to inspire you to do those things in our community, that was very powerful.
And he's continuing the work that Dr. Letts started.
If we focus on making things better as human beings, we'll continue to strive and build a strong educational system here in Lansing and in our country.
Her legacy is having built a foundation for adults, for children, for youth, for the community, for the future. And it still goes on. It's still multiplying. It's still continuing.
And speaking of legacies, Deanna's sitting down with one Supreme Court justice who's creating a legacy of her own. And one Lansing woman realized that in sharing her story, she would also become a voice to the voiceless. Tanisha Ashakur is the founder of Voices of Color, a statewide nonprofit that champions for domestic violence survivors and their families. And today, she's sharing her story with us, but we do want to warn you that some parts of this story may be triggering for some to hear.
I had a friend, we were acquaintances in college. As soon as I said I will be your girlfriend, everything changed.
Tanisha Ashakur is the founder of Voices of Color, a domestic violence nonprofit advocacy organization, but she was first a survivor of intimate partner violence.
So I went through the emotional, the verbal, the physical abuse until the point the sexual abuse started. I was being raped, and in December of 2007, he held me in a room for over 3+ hours, and he told me he was going to murder me. So I had started counting steps to the door. How long is it going to take me to get from my bedroom? If I have to leap over this way, held a knife to my stomach and to my throat, just letting me know, like, I can kill you. And that's what I plan to do. Because after some time, I just stopped counting or thinking about time, and I just prepared myself to die. Like, this is finally the chance that I get. And then, Tanisha, how are you going to respond?
Tanisha got a second chance at life, and with the help of her mother, she was able to finally leave her abuser. And then she began her healing journey. And after sharing her story on a church pulpit, she realized others could be inspired and helped too, which prompted Voices of Color.
We provide an array of services for domestic violence victims, regardless of their gender, age, sexual orientation, or race.
And those services include gas cards, hotel stays, funeral costs, and being a voice for the voiceless across the state of Michigan. She does this because she saw firsthand that there is so much responsibility placed on the victim to get themselves out of their own violent situation. She says her ex-boyfriend made 12 copies of her apartment key and was met with no help when she asked her landlord to change the locks.
There's too much time being wasted on what are you going to do first? What are you going to do first? And then I'll step in. I may be able to do this. I may be able to do that. And sadly enough, I have had survivors who have called organizations and agencies as a woman of color, and they were told, we can't do anything for you. We don't have any availability. And I've had a white counterpart call, and resources were available.
Something that resonated with another woman who was helped by Voices of Color. She asked to remain anonymous, but tells me,
yes, definitely. She's been one that, if she knows that you're in an uncomfortable position or place, she does not sleep until she knows that you are safe. I think with we having been with such a large size family, it was kind of hard to find housing, but she stepped right in and she was there.
Tanisha vows to not let this be anyone else's story. But not only does she help people who have been in her shoes, she also helps those who have been in her abuser's shoes too.
Aspect of it. So I guess, I've gotten into a great group full of accountable men that, I believe we really do hold each other accountable.
Multiple times a week, Tanisha teaches a class to perpetrators of intimate partner violence who are working to make a change.
We're all here for the same reason and the greater good of trying to be better men in society. Nobody else is responsible for what I've done, and it's entirely my decisions that were made. And therefore, that's why I sit here responsible and trying to make a change.
As Tanisha works to heal others of their traumas, hers hasn't fully gone away.
I am diagnosed with PTSD. I am still on very much, I say needed medication. Just this year, I started having night terrors again. So for 3+ months, I was being shot in the head in my dreams. I was always running. And so I absolutely, while I say I am actively still healing, I believe that healing is an ongoing word when you've experienced such a level of trauma. And I accept that. The more and more I share, I unlock part of my story every single time. And it is so freeing for me to keep saying it aloud. And I think it is also important for me to recognize my mental health so that people know that it's okay.
Well, Tanisha also wants others to know and recognize that domestic violence isn't always physical or sexual. It can also be verbal and emotional. And she says that when you're ready, she is ready to help. And if you know someone who is a victim of domestic violence, you can email Voices of Color at thevoicesofcolor@gmail.com so that they can get the help that they need. We'll be right back.